through that. What are my rights? What are my kids' rights? And from junior high on up, parents are going to have to look at what are my rights, and you have to do that. So you've got to have a mind that you've got to have the rights to do that. So then part of that is also, what access do you need? Now, these are my viewpoints. People have asked me, and I've said, if you're in junior high, and I think you can do that, I don't think your kids need access to the internet. You might want them to have a phone. It's very nice. They go to soccer practice. They can call you. I'm done. You can call them and see if they're there and done. Okay, so that's a nice thing to be able to have. When it was just computers, I told people, I don't know if your kid has a right to have a computer in their room behind closed doors. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's just explosive stuff that's going on with kids behind closed doors. Well, now you don't have to worry about closed doors because they carried around with it in their pocket. So now what are you going to do about it? So there's got to be, and I'm not the techie, but I think parents are going to have to do something to have, whether websites are reported or you randomly check, or every day when they come home, you take their phone and say, I just want you to know, I'm going to check and I'm going to see the websites that you have visited, just for the accountability, because otherwise you're not going to know. You have to then teach your kids on protocol, on what to do on the internet. You can't, if you don't do some checking, you can't control it. You can tell them, I would never, ever, 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 ever enter into a chat with anyone online that you don't know. Never. I mean, you know, if you're a parent and you're going in, you know, you're asking for a repair question, sometimes you can chat and you can write, you know, questions to Apple or something. You know, I get that, but internet chats with somebody you don't know, I think you talk to law enforcement, and I think my brother who worked in law enforcement would back this up. There's just so much out there. That'd be one rule I'd have. You don't enter into a chat with anyone. You have no idea who's trolling out there. Maybe I should stop, but you get the idea. The protocol for doing that, parents, it's an incredible, it's like a lot of technology, incredible tool, but it bears absolutely more responsibility to how to use that tool than I think most kids have. So parents have to be more proactive at doing that. I was talking with Jason yesterday. We were talking about what we do with camps. That's why when our kids go to camps, they give up their phones. I just don't want kids running around like this. They need to be involved. You know, the other thing about that, it doesn't teach them to be conversationalist. It teaches them to drill in here and have their heads down, but that doesn't teach even social skills. So there's other less innocuous things that I think I'd be concerned. But the biggest thing is the sexual predator thing. That is alive and well. And if you're a parent, and I realize we've gone past like Facebook, but I remember 4 or 5 years ago, began to realize, and I began to tell parents, if you want to know what's really going on in your kids' world, just check some of your kids' friends' Facebook pages. I mean, whoa, it's alarming. It's alarming the kind of stuff they will post. It's alarming the lies they will tell. There's no country song about that, isn't it? Online, I'm 6'4", and I'm a star at University of Texas, and I'm this and I'm that, and you're really not. But online, you can be anything you want to be. So, yeah, that's a great question. I hope you parents catch the enormity of that, because in my day and age, you used to have to walk down the corner to get the pornography. They don't have to do that anymore. And not only that, it's not just, it's interactive, and it can sound innocent. In my wildest imagination, even when we went to these parents and told them what was happening, they couldn't believe this about their innocent little 14-year-old. And I couldn't either, but how does somebody get sucked into that? They're just not old enough to develop the parameters and don't realize what's going on when these pros are out there trying to draw them in that way. So I hope that's enough just to raise the flags. So let's get to the fair fight question now that Jim's back. So you were set up, Jim, so I'm sorry about it. I'll stop there and we'll get to that. But I'd just be curious, even your interaction on this media stuff with phones. Does that make any sense? Yeah.
I was just going to say on a more innocent level, I know with middle schoolers, it's Instagram. And I think what I have found with it is, you know, when I was a kid, you didn't know what everybody was doing. You were worried about your own little world. And on Instagram, who's going where, who's with who, got Starbucks together, you know, and it's that I think is important in younger, like the more innocent age, because then it just becomes a competition, and then you start feeling bad because you're not doing this and you're not doing that. And
there have been some recent studies on internet bullying. Not only bullying, but realizing I'm not your friend.
yeah,
And that can destroy a person if I'm not in their group. And it's never any personal interaction, but it has incredible power to do that.
and they're putting it on their profile who their besties are.
Yeah.
And 1 week they take them off, and 1 week they don't. And if your kids are on there all the time looking to see who's taking them off their bed, I mean, they just become. That's what they become fixated with.
Yeah.
Instead of just having a good day and having fun, they would never know otherwise. But if you're on there looking,
We took our grandkids out 3-4 weeks out on the boat. We're out in the water, and our granddaughter brought one of her best friends along. And all day long they were trying to talk, they weren't trying to be mean to this other girl's kind of a best friend, but, she'll look online, don't post anything, she'll look online and find out that you're out here, and I didn't invite her, and they were all worried about this, but that's the world they live in. And so so you have to teach them, you just have to teach them relationships, and they're fragile, then get hurt. The other side of that, my 2-year-old grandson is an expert. I mean, the games, not just the games, but even the educational stuff. You see him? I mean, he can go right down his mom's phone, and he knows how to get, and she's got it, you can lock down stuff, but he knows how to get to some of the stuff that he, colors and animal shapes, and so incredible tool. So I'm not saying you don't use it, but you just need to understand, especially the relationship side, the habit forming side, and the sexual predator side. Those are the things you really got to be cautious of.
I have a question.
Yeah.
About the internet access.
Yeah.
And Brad Shaws, I'd like to also get you into the competition because you have middle school and high school. With the internet access, how much of their schoolwork
Yeah.
is actually,
Yeah.
like, how often do they have to be on the internet?
daily.
Every day,
Yeah.
their homework and their assignments they have to go online and look at their assignments.
They send their homework through their cloud or
Yeah, and their portal.
whatever it is.
Yeah. See, that's it. You can't take these away and get by in life almost. We're almost at that place. You can't take them away. In fact, we don't do the iPads in the school yet, do we? We were talking about. But Brian, yeah, our local high school gives an iPad to every student. So you can't get away from it.
Well, you're almost shy because I don't think our hygienist is here, but her son is a senior this year, and last year he still had a flip phone. Well,
Oh, yeah,
in
you-
class, they were like, go get out your phone and start searching something, and he was like,
Flip.
all his friends were like chastising him, like, oh, you still have a flip phone.
Used to have a flip phone.
Came home and was like,
Used to have a flip phone. How passe. Come on.
I'm trying to get you a smartphone, Patty. He was like, I need a smartphone now. I'm like, I'm left out of researching it in the classroom.
Yep.
So now it's also a psychological,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
look up stuff online, at their desks.
And I realized too, we passed, and you probably realize this, we passed, it used to be phone, and then it was email. You want to communicate with them, but email doesn't work anymore.
Email's like a long range.
You have to text. I hate this. I still hate this. My thumbs don't work, but if I have to spend the time doing that, why don't I just call them and ask them? But it can be a very real thing. I've learned even a lot of my elders, they don't answer the phone. They won't unless I text them.
That's because it says John McNeff.
The pastor calling. Yeah, they don't want to go there. So that's a great question. Educationally, it is, and it's a phenomenal tool. Absolutely phenomenal tool. You just have to look at that and understand those are the habit forming, being able to walk away, the thought process that you've got to really give attention to, and then the sexual side. You've just got to have lockdown on that stuff. Because your kids are just not, it used to be they had to go somewhere to get this. Now it just walks right into the screen. And they don't have the discipline, they don't have the maturity to know how to handle that kind of. So you have to And the best thing I say, you just have to you have to like check their sites every day. That's a way to, unless some of your techies know how to lock it out, or I don't know how to do that.
That response too, do not allow them to erase history.
Yeah.
You know you're going to do random audits, and if you pick up their device, whatever it is, and you go to check history and it's gone,
Yeah.
then there should
Big
be
clue.
consequence for that.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
Like even the lines of texting, we use that in school too.
Yep.
There's a lot of apps that we use, like Remind 101, that we can send out a blast text
Yep.
to all of our students in class,
Yep.
or all of the kids in a club, and so it's even hard to get away from texting in school
Yep.
as well. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's what we use, 'cause
That's to say, there's a good side that the communication side of that is incredible. Yep.
I think every generation has had their issue with what people are used to. And if you go back a little further in the base of what you're talking about here too, there's a lot that can be dealt with as far as parent-child interaction, relationship, communication. My girls were in junior high and high school before the age of smartphones,
Yeah.
really even phones. But I said to them, since they were little, I said, let's talk about whatever questions you have. I said, if you have, if you really have some strong desire to try cigarettes, I said, I want you to come to me because I want to make sure that the cigarette you try is.
So you're sitting out in the back porch lighting up and with all.
It was actually the front porch.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
And I told her.
Right out. No.
I said, this is how you're gonna inhale it in your lungs, and it's gonna, this, to get the full effect, you gotta really go. She had vomiting and crying, and she never had a desire for cigarettes.
Yeah.
My daughters knew they could come to me, they could ask me any question about anything,
Yeah.
and we would talk about it. And if you have a
Mm-hmm.
relationship with your kids, you have conversation with your kids, 99% of that battle is going to be there. If you go to your kids and you say, okay, this is Instagram, this is how it works, you need to stay away from this screen right here because this is where anything and everything will pop up. If you want the privilege of this, then there's responsibility. You have these conversations from the time they're little because kids are way
Yeah.
smarter than kids credit for.
You can do that, but the problem, you got to check it because they do not have the materials. Oh, so that's where I'm going to do this, and they're going to check it. They're going to try and find out. So, yeah, those are. In my day, it was TV, and so parents had to really watch what went on in TV. Now, they're far past that. So it just takes parental involvement. Yeah.
I think, we saw it this last spring or summer when we went on our trip. It was, we said no phones initially on the trip, and the kids kind of grumbled, but the parents went
Yeah.
about it, because they're so used to texting and keeping track of their kids that way. So the kids thought, man, we got this long drive, there's no way we can't have this. Like, what about music? We need to listen to music. We'll have music on the van.
Yeah.
We'll have music, don't worry. And then,
May not be your music.
You know what? Oh my God. It's very annoying after a while. But in the end, some of these kids said, my favorite part was the ride. Because they just interacted and joked
Yeah.
and talked and messed around and actually had interaction
Yeah.
with one each other instead of with their phone.
Well, parents have to lead the way. Parents have the same problems. It's not just kids. I'm not trying to pick on our kids. Parents have to, what am I doing to stop being dominated by this piece of technology? You've got to say, because it's addictive. You've got to, okay, what am I going to do to put that down? And especially when around people to engage in conversation. I mean, again, I'm picking my grandsons because I hear, we take a drive to the lake, and as soon as he gets in the front seat, if he's right, the phone comes out, he doesn't even talk to me. And now he is incredible. I said, right, I need to know how to get there. Man, he'll look it up and say, well, turn right to 3rd Street and then left over here. He's got that down like that. But I've had to say, Riley, when you're in Papa's truck, put the phone down because I want to talk to you. He didn't quite get that, but that's what adults will do.
Look at families and they're all sitting there on their phone.
Yeah.
Texting each other.
Yeah. What are you going to have for dinner? Oh, I don't know. Okay, we probably covered, I hope as parents you get the idea that needs to be, I agree back here that you just have to build that relationship, and you have to know that you have to be the one that's in charge of that. Yeah. Yeah, when my kids were growing up, it was the computer, and so we just made the choice, no, you don't have a computer in your room. You don't have a right to have a computer behind closed doors where it's dark and you do whatever you want. You don't have it. When you get in college, you get 18, then it's up to you. But the kids don't have the discipline. They don't have the discipline to filter all the stuff that's coming in. And so now it's moved from the room right into their pocket. And so you've got their purse or whatever. So you as parents need to know, you need to know for yourself what this is doing to you. And if you know how to handle it, you'll be able to teach your kids. So it has to start with parents. Yeah. Should we do a fair fight? Jim, I asked. Your wife said, I mentioned that. She said, yeah.
I've been here the whole time. It's definitely
Yeah, and premarital, I think that's one of the things we try and do to help young married couples know. There's going to be conflict. It's not a matter of when, but just how to deal with it. So here's my idea on that. That depends on personalities. It depends on who's the talker and who's not the talker. It depends on who's the passive, who's the aggressive. That's not a male or female thing. It's just, it can be either one. So it's not women are this way and men are this way. It's not like that. You have to figure out kind of who you are. So the classic situation, I point to somebody, let's say that you're just married and 2 or 3 months into it, and he comes home late for dinner. If there's an expectation, I'm off work here and this is where we're going to have dinner. And so you do your best to prepare a meal that you want to do, and he comes home, but he's an hour late. Okay, how are you going to handle that? What are you going to do? I think you've got to know like if you're a talker, do you want to deal with it now? That one time might not be a big deal, but what happens if it happens 4 or 5 times in a row? Now you're legitimate. This guy is just blowing by, even just courtesy for another person. So how are you going to handle that? You both have to at least talk about what's my person. Do you want to deal with it right then? Are you going to be the kind of person like, oh yeah, she's going to deal with it right then, and that's fine. He may know. Somebody may not be like that. And my wife is fair game. If you want to ask the other side of this, she'd be more than glad to say she's not that kind of person. She is so gracious and so nice. She will bury it, and she won't tell me what she said, what she thinks, for a while. And so that can be difficult. You have to know that, and you have to be willing to come back and deal with it. And you both have to know how you're both going to deal with it. Some men and some women are just right like that. Other people not so. So it's not a matter of even doing what's right and wrong. It's a matter of knowing who you are, your personality. You say, okay, then how are we going to deal with this? Well, I need some time. Okay, how much time? And here's the time I suggest. The Bible gives a guideline. In Ephesians 4, it says, don't let the sun go down in your anger. So I think that's every day. I think sometime before the sun goes down, if you need to be clear about what happened that day. Because you know how that goes. If you don't deal with it then, you tend to sleep on it, and the next day it's still an irritant, but you get up and man, you're running it and you're off and you kind of forget about it. Well, what happens if that happens 3, 4, 5 times, maybe over 6 months? That starts to build up an irritant. And then when you start getting into a blow up, then you go back and you bring up this past garbage. Well, you never do this. You always come home late. And always and never are loaded words, but you haven't dealt with it back then. So now it becomes an issue that is really there, but you haven't dealt with. So your spouse doesn't know that, and all of a sudden they just get hit with it all at once. So you've got to know if you are the kind of person that needs to say something right away, you better tell them, that's going to be my first reaction. And if the person receiving that is not the kind of person, whoa, I didn't know that was that big a deal. I didn't know you were mad. Well, then they need to know, can you get right back? Or maybe you need to have some time to go away and process things. Give me a little time to think about that. Now, sometimes if you've got two hotheads together, they're going to deal with it right away. And then you better learn the rules of that conversation, because that can happen. I think most often you have one talker and one non-talker. Just an observation. I don't know if that's true. But if you've got two hotheads, they both want to deal with it right now, then you better know the rules of engagement, and you better decide in advance when you're cool and calm, okay, when you say this, here's what I think is out of bounds. When you do this, and I think there's some rules you can have. You don't need to use swearing. Stay away from the swearing. Stay away from the name calling. Don't say, you are this. Say, my observation, my perception is this. It's not you are, it's this. Avoid words like you always, you never. And respect each other that way. If it really gets heated, you need to develop some rules like, here's one I use. If you're really going to have that conversation, take something like a pen and establish things in advance. Don't talk back and forth with each other. If you're going to talk and say, I'm going to talk until I'm done, and then give you the pen, okay, now you can talk. Wait a minute, I'm not done. That's how it works. In our family, she's probably exactly right. That's how it would work. So if you're that kind of a couple, you've got to figure that out. I'm going to say my piece, I'm going to give it to her, and then I'm going to shut up. Now, and she's going to talk, and then she gives it back. That's just a little technique, but you've got to figure out what kind of couple you are. Here's the deal, though. The bottom line is the Ephesians thing. Don't let the sun go down in your anger. Before you go to bed at night, we've had some of the most instructive conversations in bed, at night, in the dark, staring up, and I'll say something, and she'll say something, and then I notice, oh no, she's crying again, and it's my fault. And then you reach out, okay, what's the deal? I can remember, I'll just share one. That's the place where I found out just little things like, and Anna's she's very gracious, but it came, it's like one of those conversations, you choose everything we do. Like what? Well, like the cars we drive and like the vacations we take. So? I had no idea. We were married, at least 20 years before that conversation took place. It wasn't a big deal to me, and it really wasn't a big deal to her been taking that time in the dark at night staring up at the ceiling. I found out she didn't like the car she was driving because I picked it out. And I thought it made sense. So I don't like a big car, I like a little car. Oh, you mean you want a Toyota? No offense to Toyotas. I like trucks and big cars. So she drives a little Mustang. That was a compromise. Yeah. Vacation, she said, always pick, well, I don't know, where do you want to go? I'd love to go up on the coast of Oregon. Done. I didn't know that. So that came out of a context of before the sun goes down, deal with it then. So I don't know what it means to you. I don't know if you can do a dinner table thing afterwards. Usually when you have kids, boy, we never forget how to do that at the dinner table or afterwards, homework and getting kids to bed and all that, so sometimes it has to be. But that's the principle. The last thing before you turn the lights out and go to sleep, if you've got something harboring in your heart, you better figure out some kind of time and some way to say, when this happened earlier, we were at Costco, and you did this and you said that. That just cut me like a knife. I don't think you meant it, but so otherwise those just build up to be resentments and you never deal with it. And to some extent, it's not your spouse's problem if you won't bring it up. They don't know. So we could do more, but anybody have other suggestions on fair fights? No mudslinging and knives and bullets and guns and stuff like that. Yeah.
Something that really changed my life was reading that book, The Eggeriches. I can't think of what it's called. It talks about
Yeah, love and respect.
Love and respect. I grew up in that women's lib, you're just as good as a man with it drilled in. And so my thought was, everyone deserves unconditional love, but you have to earn respect.
Hmm.
And when I read that book and saw that scripture verse that I had heard my whole life, I had never understood it before about men needing unconditional respect and women needing unconditional love. And I'm very much the kind of person when I fight, I want to get my point across right, and I get more aggressive, my voice gets louder, and it's not a good way to approach conflict. And in that book, it talked about that crazy cycle that we get in where she says something disrespectful, which causes him to say something unloving, which causes her to say something disrespectful, and he gets more unloving, and she gets more, and somebody at some point has to say, hold on, and break the crazy cycle.
Yeah.
And John and I have really learned, we've only been married 4 years, and we've learned that we have to keep in mind when we have conflict that we are well-intentioned toward one another. If he says something that hurts my feelings, it's not because he set out to think of the meanest thing he could say to me, or vice
Yeah.
versa. And that has really, really helped us. It has changed the way both of us
Yeah.
behave in marriage.
That's why you need to understand your temperament type, and you understand how you deal with that. That doesn't mean it's okay to just blast away, but you're probably never going to be the passive, quiet person who's going to sit back and say, I need half an hour to do it. You're going to be the kind of person who's right out. And that's fine, but you need to know that, and he needs to know that. And then some of these other things begin to factor in. I'll tell you the other thing that really does a lot with the fair fight thing is what I talked about yesterday. If you will learn to pray together, I'll tell you, it's be one of the hardest things that you will learn to do, but it'll be one of the things that will go so far to bring the level down. If you, as a husband and wife, make a commitment to pray on a consistent basis together and to hear their voice praying for you. You don't, if you're fighting in prayer, then you better back off. Dear Lord, would you please change this clown I'm married to? And then you're probably not praying. I mean, David prayed imprecatory, God, would you please cause him to fall out and break his teeth and cause his hair to fall out? That's not praying. So, but you know what I mean? But if you really pray, and when you can't start praying for somebody and not have a tender heart towards them. So it goes a long ways to that. It's just that mechanism of praying together, joining hands. If it's, it means that holding their hand, sitting knee to knee, and saying their name out loud in prayer. That just goes a long way. So other things.
A lot of times we think we understand our personalities well, and for those who know our story, Jamie and I's story, we went through our own civil war and sin for years, and one of the best resources that helped us identify who we are was a book called The Two Sides of Love by Gary Smalley, John Trent. And so if you would like to help discern what personality type you really are and how your personality can fight fair and or even interact with your spouse productively, that would be a resource that I would recommend because, again, it helped us.
What's the name of it?
The Two Sides of Love.
Two Sides of Love.
Trent and Smalley.
Yeah. Guys, if you don't read, ask your wife to read it and tell you what it says. The everyday thing is really the biggest thing to me. Yeah, another comment?
I have a question.
Yeah.
When your children are out of the house and doing things that you don't agree with, you see that they're on a path towards danger, I find it really hard not to get upset about it. I know that I can't take it on sometimes as my own business and that it's for me to pray about more than anything. Do you have any other advice for that season of life?
No, never been. Yeah, do what you're doing. Be worried. Pray about it. Keep your mouth shut. It's when kids get to be adults, unless they come to you. I'm gonna read something later on at the end of the message today, and it's called The Fleeting Face of Fatherhood. I wrote something like that to my son when he graduated from high school. One of those things in there is, you're 18, and from now on I'm going to try and treat you as an adult, which means I'm going to try and stop giving you advice, unless it's asked for. And believe me, I know how hard that is. That's not my natural tendency at all. Let me back off into something else, because I think part of it has to do with this, and so let me build on this, because it has to do with the idea of discipline. Let me give you an idea that I don't remember where I learned this one, but it made sense to me. And we didn't originally do this, but in my mind, here's what I was trying to do with discipline with my kids. I try and view them like, when they're little, toddler, you are their world. When they're little, our oldest daughter, Casey, one time we got a message from somebody else about something. She was in first grade, and I remember asking her, did you do this? Did you? And she said, do you know? And I want to let them, I know everything. I know everything, because I wanted them to know that. So, but you can't do that forever. So I think about junior high is when they're in grade school, you better know everything. You'd better know friends. We found in kindergarten and first grade, our kids were coming home with words and things on papers that they went to so-and-so's house, and you know something, wow, you don't go to that house anymore. You'd better be really sure what houses your kids are going to when they're in elementary school. You'd better be really sure. And you'd probably less than 2 or 3 houses you would trust, because you have no idea what's coming across their TV screens. You have no idea what's going on between. Oh, we never let them do sleepovers at all unless we were absolutely sure of the parents. And I will say, as I mentioned, yes, that's some family members. We did not let my kids go over to certain family members. Is this being recorded again?
Can I interject real quick, because we don't either, unless we really know them. What is the proper way to not offend somebody and just say, other than you don't do sleepovers, you just say that? Because I've just had some friends who kind of feel like, well, you're saying no, this is just what we do.
Yeah, that's sure. It's your kids, and to some extent, you're not trying to offend anybody. So, well, we just don't think you can't. You don't have to lie. We're busy. When they know you're home, you say, yeah, we just don't. There's other things going on in our life right now. And we just don't think that's wise for her to do a sleepover right now.
I've not had a graceful way to say that to a friend without them
I know.
stating that you're not worthy of
Yes.
or you're a pedophile. I'm like, no, it's not you. This is our policy.
Yeah, and you can just say that. You can just say that.
We have contagious diseases, right?
Yeah. My kids have the mumps. You don't want them. Yeah. Yeah, those can be a little testy, but so you need to know that. So as they grow up, and that's why you need to know their world. You need to know their friends. You need to know the kids they play soccer with, and what you're going to do with all that, because then they start picking up all kinds of stuff. And your kids are innocent, and they're going to be marked by all that. So you're responsible for that. But the process, I think, by the time they're 6th grade, I remember, and I don't know, maybe it's boys versus girls. I had 2 girls and 1 boy, so I can't say this for sure. I think I was more concerned about it with, on one hand, girls they're different, they're more difficult. You're worried about feelings and best friends and all that. But hanging out with was, I think, more important for my son, and its responsibility, like even stuff in the room. So here's what I did with them. At 7th grade, you have certain things that we will say are yours. Your bike, things in your room. And by the time, I want to get you on a process so that by the time you're 18, that's why I'm going back to this 18 thing, I want to you're in a box, and you feel like mom and dad are really controlling. Well, I want to do something the next 6 years. Every year, I want to open up that box. And so I want to give more responsibility. And right now, I know that 6 years from now, you're going to want a car. And what we do in a car will be determined by the responsibility that you use right now with regard to your bike and other things that you have. If you treat them shabbily, and if you don't care about them, when you get a new bike, then it's outside and behind the car, and you trash it, then that tells me you really are not learning how to take care of your stuff. And if you don't learn how to take care of your stuff, if you're still doing the same thing through high school, I'm not going to invest and help you in a car, because you won't know how to take care of it. You're just going to trash it. So there's a principle of taking this box, and I remember at various times, I never wrote it down, but I remember talking with him specifically about that and saying, each year I want that box to grow. And for instance, even curfew, it's like, you know, as your kids are small, I mean, like 7:30 was always the bedtime when they were little, and then as they get a little bit older, it's 8 o'clock, then 8:30, and then 9:30. So I think there's that principle that they can learn more, earn more, and so by the time they're, I don't remember exactly how the time works out, but like homework done, say, 9:30 in ninth grade, then 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and so forth. So by the time they're 18, now that doesn't mean I think a kid is mature and grown up at 18. It used to be in our world, people were out in the world on their own, that's just the way it was. We've got this delayed adolescence thing, so that most guys, I mean, even sociologists write about it, most men are not, you have this whole delayed adolescence thing. 18 to 25-year-old men are like, used to be 18-year-old guys, immature, not able to take on responsibility. So I know that, but I want them to know too, by the time you get out of high school, as much as possible, here's how I'm getting into yours, I want to tell you, I want to be done with you. I'm still around for advice, money, school. I get that. There's some responsibilities I have, but at that time, yeah, we're gonna try and release the curfew, and you're out with friends. We're gonna go to bed. The door's open. Now, if you abuse that, if you come in 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning and you're drunk as a sailor, we're going to have a talk, because you're not going to do that in this house. And if you're going to do that, that means you're out. So does that make sense? I mean, the principle of opening up the box. I think you need to start having that conversation with your kids at least by ninth grade, because those high school years go very, very quickly. And so if you're beginning the process when they're younger and you're trying to tell them right now, you have the responsibility of, you have the responsibility of your room. And if your room looks like a tornado went through it, that'll tell me that later on, you're not going to be able to have the responsibility to know how to take care of anything. So I know some kids are messy, and I don't know if our son ever learned that. But I tell you what, in talking about now, his house is spick and spot. It's spick and clean, because he did learn that along the way. So don't get discouraged because they're not mature yet, but I think it's that principle of learning how to give the box so that when they're 18, and I violated this, but I know in my mind, if you're 18, okay, you're an adult. I just want to keep quiet. And now that they're all married, it's even more so. I suppose every grandparent, they see how they're doing things with their kids, and you think, I wouldn't do that. Well, that's okay. You're not their parent. So keep quiet. Let them learn like you learned. I don't know. Does that make sense? Opening box, teach more responsibility. You're probably going to help them through college, into a job, or whatever they do. But let them know you want to release them. Tell them you want to be out of here. I want you out of here. I don't want to have you hang. I want to release that. So that's what I want to work for. So you are independent and you're on your own. That's what we're working together as a team to do. And so that you're trying to release them in that way. Let them know that. Let them know you're working with them. You're not just big bad ogres sitting here trying to, cramp their style all the time. And I think as they grow to maturity, they will see that. It doesn't mean they're going to like everything you're going to do. In fact, I was going back to games. My son said, about a year ago, I was talking to him. In my house, maybe it's just me, I can't stand video games. Some of the Xbox and Pac-Man, we never did that. I didn't allow my kids to have any video games in the house. I thought it's a waste of time. I made a comment to him about all the X. I said, did that ever bother you? He said, a little bit at the time because my friends did, and I thought I wanted all the gadgets they did. But he said, it really never bothered. Does it bother you now? I said, no. I think they're dumb. Okay? So that was just my deal. Now, that's not all parents, but I just thought, because I knew what happened, I see adults spending hours on these silly games. I don't even know what they are, Madden football, and now the new thing, I don't know if it's going on here, but the fantasy football league. Guys around there are spending hours every week on that thing. And they asked me if I wanted to get in, and I said, no, I don't need another addiction. So part of it's just time control. It's not even necessarily anything wrong with it. Although the games I got into, I don't even remember the names. I see the violence and the stuff that goes on in the games. Why in the world do you want to put that stuff in front of your kids? Why do you want to buy a machine where they can do that? They don't have a right to do that. And you're teaching them by what goes into their mind, that's just the world. And that's not the world I want my kids to inherit. So I felt I have a right as a parent to say, no games, no video games in the house. I'd rather sit down and play chess or checkers or Monopoly, or we'll do something else. My son was a car nut. I'm a car nut. We worked on cars. We did all kinds of stuff, but just a decision we made. Where are we at? We're at 10 o'clock. Probably should be done. Okay. You guys all, these are the kind of conversations have with each other. Get in a small group, and one of the best things we did is have other friends going through this kind of stuff. And it's not a matter of authority. It's just a matter of talking, hearing what other parents are doing. So, great discussion. Let me just close up in prayer, and then we'll be ready to go. Lord, thank you for each one of these parents. Thank you for their concern for their kids and their families. And Lord, I pray in the process of helping them mature that you'd give them wisdom along the way. There's no such thing as a set straitjacket set of rules for husbands and wives and communication or how we deal with our kids. So, Father, we just give ourselves to what you would desire us to do and ask you to give us wisdom from your word, we pray. In Jesus' name, amen.